It's not like these guys are out here trying to make these mistakes, but they're out there trying to make plays.
Making plays was something the entire Temple football team struggled to do in its first conference matchup against Tulsa.
A very disappointing loss for an Owls team still struggling to run the ball with homecoming on the horizon.
I'm Covone, live outside of Edward-Olson Hall. Later on in the show, I'll tell you exactly how hard it's been for Temple to win on the road.
I'm Hayden Bandel, live from the studio set. There's a herd of Bulls in the conference that's running through competition in a way we have not seen in a while. Inside the Nest is live and it starts right now. Rock.
Hello and welcome on in to another edition of Inside the Nest. I'm Gabel and she's Meg Doyle.
The Owls played in their first conference game of the season last Thursday, and it certainly was not the start they were hoping for. Temple traveled to Oklahoma to take on the Tulsa Golden Hurricane in its first conference matchup. The Owls got off to an early lead with a field goal that quickly goes away when Tulsa QB Cardell Williams passes short to Carl Chester for 30 yards. This sets Williams up for a touchdown pass to Marquise Shoulders and a Tulsa lead. Temple goes 3 and out on the next drive, and Williams sends a 27-yard pass to Shoulders for his second touchdown of the night. Temple tries to respond, but E.J. Warner's pass gets picked off for the only interception of the night. The Owls finally get a run game going, but that gets cut short by a fumble and a Tulsa recovery. The Golden Hurricane gets one more touchdown before half, another Williams touchdown pass to Devon Williams. Temple goes into half, trailing by 18.
On to the second half, a Tulsa field goal makes it 24-3. But here comes Sam Martin Jr. on the kickoff return. Martin Jr. follows his blockers and goes 95 yards to the house. It's Temple's first kickoff return touchdown since 2018. The Owls go for 2 and get it to make it 24-11. Not even a minute later, Williams airs it out to Camden Benjamin for 40 yards. 2 plays later, the handoff to Anthony Watkins leads to Tulsa's 4th touchdown of the game. Another Temple touchdown and a Tulsa field goal makes it 34-18 in the 4th quarter. Taj Gary goes untouched on a 40-yard dash for yet another Golden Hurricane touchdown. Late in the 4th quarter, Owls not giving up. Warner is going to find Dante Wright for the big gain. Wright coming back after missing the Miami game due to injury. Owls now on the goal line and John Adams with the reception. The first career touchdown for the redshirt sophomore. Temple again goes for 2 and gets it again. Edward Sadie fighting in for the score, but it is much too little, too late. Tulsa walks away with a dominant 48-26 victory. And the box score isn't much prettier than the highlights. Tulsa scored at least 1 touchdown in all 4 quarters. Ahmad Anderson Jr. had another very productive game, but left the game early due to injury. Meanwhile, too many on Tulsa were partying in the end zone. Quarterback Cardell Williams had 4 total touchdowns, 2 of those going to Marquise Shoulders. We know the stats. Now let's talk about it. Meg, what do you think about this loss from Temple?
I mean, Jake, last week I predicted Temple was going to win this game. I was not expecting a 22-point loss. I mean, Temple had no run game. I hate to sound like a broken record, but 44 rushing yards for the whole game compared to Tulsa's 289. Now, Temple still did lead in passing yards with 269, but that doesn't really matter because EJ was only completing a little over half of those passes, 27 for 49 passes. I saw a lot of similarities in this Tulsa game versus the Miami game. Miami was ranked number 20. I was expecting those mistakes, but with Tulsa, I thought it was going to be a lot closer matchup, and it just wasn't.
Yeah, and then coming into the game, we were talking about which quarterback is going to start. 3 different quarterbacks for Tulsa had started games prior to the Temple one. Cardell Williams ended up making the start, and he looked like a Heisman candidate. He won AAC Offensive Player of the Week. He entered the game completing 58% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and averaging just 149 yards a game. Well, he had 82% completion percentage, only in completing 3 of his passes, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 244 yards. That's almost over 100 yards over his per game average through the air. And Temple's secondary was a complete no-show. Marquis Shoulders had 2 touchdowns, and there were a lot of missed assignments.
There definitely were a lot of missed assignments, and on top of that, there were a lot of Temple guys getting injured. I mean, Alan Hay, he is now out for the season. Dante Wright, Ahmad Anderson, they're taking it day by day. On Monday, Ahmad Anderson was seen in a boot, so that doesn't seem promising to have him at the game on Saturday. And on top of that, Yvonne Rigby, we haven't seen him in weeks. The last time he played was against Rutgers when he got hurt. So there's going to be some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, there will definitely be big shoes to fill, but Temple's second road game of the season was not the outcome they hoped for. Our very own beat reporter Sam Covone is at Edberg Olson Hall outside the practice facility and has the story on the Owls' road record woes. Hey, Sam.
Thanks, guys. The Owls' loss to Tulsa is not just another check in the loss column. Temple really struggles on the road just as much as about any other college football team.
The long and winding road has been a rough road for the Owls. It's been about 2 years, over 750 days, since Temple won its last game on the road, September 11th, 2021 to be exact.
The scene for a touchdown, and Temple takes the lead.
And the lopsided loss at Tulsa is a prime example of the team's struggles.
I thought we messed up briefly against Tulsa, but obviously that wasn't the way it turned out.
This streak started well before Stan Drayton was in charge. It's an example of a struggling program. But winning on the road in college football is very hard. In 2022, 13 college teams didn't win a road game. In fact, road teams won just 41% of the time.
Temple has not only lost every road game since September of 2021, but they have not won a conference game since November of 2022 when they defeated USF at home 54-28.
This game against Tulsa was just too much for the Owls, with common themes reappearing this season. Temple struggled to run the ball when the Owls traveled to Rutgers last month with only 68 rushing yards. On this latest trip to Tulsa, Temple walked away with only 44 rushing yards.
A couple opportunities where we got the ball down there and we didn't find a way to get the ball in the end zone. So, yeah, they did better in spots, but that's never going to be good enough. We got to find a way to be more consistent with our execution.
Temple's next road game isn't until October 14th at North Texas. But before the Owls can set their sights on their next trip, they have to defend their home field at homecoming against the UTSA Roadrunners this Saturday.
When the Owls travel to North Texas in about 2 weeks, it will not only be another road game, but another conference game. Temple has not won a conference game either since October of 2019 when they defeated ECU. That's all I have for now. Reporting from Edberg Olson Hall, I'm Sam Covone. Meg and Jake, back to you.
Thanks, Sam. It's now that time where we pick our favorite top plays of the game. And unfortunately, it wasn't very easy to do.
Yeah, Meg, what play stood out to you the most in the loss?
For my play, I'm going with one of Cardell Williams' 4 touchdowns of the night. This one was his only rushing touchdown. You see him running into the end zone, nobody around him. We're going to watch it back one more time. Right from the snap, they fake the pass off. He finds that open pocket. Corey Yeoman cannot get his hands on him. And Cardell Williams was named AAC's Offensive Player of the Week.
For my play, we saw the Sam Martin Jr. touchdown in the highlights. Let's watch it again because it's that good. Look at all the blockers out in front of him. He's running stride for stride with Edward Sadie, giving him the block there to go completely untouched for a 95-yard touchdown. We're going to watch it again, but we're going to focus in on the blockers. We can stop it right here. Look at all the blockers there for Sam Martin Jr. You have Conlon Green getting the block, Darvon Hubbard, Edward Sadie, 2 running backs in on special teams, giving Sam Martin Jr. the open lane. You can play it again right here, and you'll see Darvon Hubbard moves him out of the way. Edward Sadie moving stride for stride, maybe even a little faster than Martin, pushing him out of the way, and he has all grass to go into the end zone.
We are now up against our first break of the day. When we come back, we'll be hearing from Coach Stan Drayton on his thoughts of where the Owls went wrong against Tulsa.
But before that, we have some news on a former Temple head coach. Don't go anywhere. Inside the Nest will be back in 90 seconds.
Welcome back. We have some news on former Temple head coach Rod Carey, who was head coach for the Owls from 2019 to 2021 with a 12-20 record. Carey was just promoted to be the offensive coordinator for Indiana, his alma mater. Prior to this promotion, he was the quality control and offensive lineman coach for Indiana. Every week, head coach Stan Drayton has his Monday press conference, and after 2 straight blowout losses, the frustrations are starting to show.
Coach Drayton talks about his team's poor effort in the loss to Tulsa, as well as who to look out for in the Owls' upcoming matchup against UTSA.
It's a good question. You know, we just got to put some intentional thought process on it. It's a mindset. You know, we had a fumble and interception, and it's not like these guys are out here trying to make these mistakes, but, you know, they're out there trying to make plays and, you know, trying to run through tackles and things of that sort. Quarterbacks trying to make the right throws with timing, and, you know, there's a lot that goes into that, you know, but we just have to, it's a mindset. We just got to intentionally think about that. Never was there, you know, just too many MAs and too many misfits on defense, and, you know, our first and second down efficiency on offense has continued to struggle. We're, you know, having to convert, you know, tough third down situations, tough fourth down situations, which that's at a high percentage, but you don't want to have to live that way, and that's kind of how we're built right now. I'll tell you what, they've addressed a lot of issues. That whole offensive line is, you know, they went to the junior colleges and got a bunch of big guys, a lot of size. A lot of size on defense. Number 1 on defense is the real deal. I mean, he's a jack linebacker in their 3-down front. He's a defensive end, rush defensive end, or 4-down front. I'm gonna tell you, that kid's special. He is special. He could play anywhere in the country. So I think size and speed, and they're a very, very physical football team. They're as fast as anybody we've played, and they're as physical as anybody we've played. You know, we sit there and talk about missed assignments. That's not all on the player. You know, that's a 50-50 deal. You know, so we have to make sure that we're putting our players in the proper positions to make plays, and they fully understand what we're asking them to do within the play, and it's the what and the why, and that's kind of where we're struggling now. You get younger, you know, you got some young guys that are gonna have to fill in some spots, and you know, so. We'll see how that goes for them, but we definitely have to change the process by default anyway with new bodies that we're going to have to play.
That was part 1 of Coach Drayton's press conference, and not a lot of positives coming out of it. Stan mentioned the missed assignments that have been happening mainly on the defensive side, and that's been a problem all season long. That was Game 5 for the Owls. Heading into Game 6, there's only 6 games will be the halfway mark for this season. There's not going to be a lot of games left after that. They really need to sharpen up on that end. He said it's 50-50 on coaching and players. Both sides of that combination are going to have to step up. And then he also talked about UTSA's speed and athleticism, saying that they're as fast and as strong as anyone they've played. Well, against Miami, they played against a really athletic Miami squad, and they gave them all types of fits with how fast they were, and they were just outrunning the Owls. I think that that's going to be a huge problem for Temple in this one, especially if he says that they could be even faster than the Hurricanes were.
It's definitely going to be a problem. Stan mentioned UTSA number 1 on defense, Trey Moore. Now, this guy, he's a force to be reckoned with. 235 pounds, 19 tackles for the season, and 4 sacks. Now, the past few games, EJ has been getting sacked quite a bit. The offensive line is just not protecting him enough, so that's something they definitely are going to need to watch out for. Not only that, but Stan talked about how they have to intentionally think about what they're doing. The entire team, they just have this mental block. I think part of that comes from they haven't been making plays. Their confidence is low. Once they start making those plays, connecting those passes, getting a run game, their confidence will increase and it'll just be better for the team as a whole.
But now it's time for part 2 of Stan Drayton's press conference, talking about someone specific on the team.
Yeah, it was good to see those guys, and particularly J.O., who's been a little quiet this year. By default, right, we had to play some 12 personnel. We had some guys beat up at receiver, so 11 personnel was tough for us to get into and execute at a high level. So walking into that game, 12 was going to be the main package, and it was good to see those guys step up and make the plays that we know they're capable of making. They had some coverage breakdowns from time to time. I didn't think they played awful. They missed some tackles on the quarterback that ended up being explosive. We got, our linebacker caught on a deep explosive. That was a pretty bad matchup there. But, those guys, you had McMurray on the sideline. That was an uncharacteristic play, that took place on him. He just kind of assumed that the guy was out of bounds when he caught the ball, and you never assume, and he never does that, but he did. That's the strength of our defense right now. We don't give up on a couple of bad plays. We just try to continue to make them better and keep their confidence level high. We're just young up front. I hate to give you answers to questions like that because it sounds like excuses, but we're very young in spots, and unlike UTSA, who's went to the junior colleges, we went to high school and got our kids. So they're having to play, which that will pay off. That's the positive, is our young guys are going to play, and that will pay off in the long term. But they're still operating with high school strength and things of that sort. Hadn't been in the weight room, and but they're good effort guys, and we'll try to address it. We'll try to do some things that are different. Try to continue to support the throw game with the run a little bit, or vice versa. Set up the pass to help set up the run. We'll figure it out. Everybody thinks I'm a running back coach and run. No, I want to win, and you got to figure out what your personnel is, and you got to play into your personnel. It's not just a run game. We got to get all things clicking on all cylinders, which we haven't been able to do on a consistent basis.
That was part 2 of Stan Drayton's presser. Jake, what are you thinking?
Well, he gave praise to tight end Jordan Smith, who had a really good game at the start. He had 4 catches on his first drive and then just 1 the rest of the game. Where did he go? And then Stan mentioned being a running back coach, or not being a running back coach anymore, but he did play running back in college and had 14 jobs either at college or at the NFL level prior to Temple. 13 of them, he was a running backs coach at those schools or for an NFL team. So it is a little bit puzzling to see Temple still not being able to run, even though he is the head coach now and he has to balance multiple things.
That is so true. The run game is something they've always struggled with, but he said you just have to play into your personnel, and we haven't really seen that yet. They're still trying to figure it out, so we'll have to see how that shakes out for them this weekend.
It's time for another break. On the other side, we'll hear from a few players to see their expectations for the upcoming game.
Stay inside the nest. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Earlier today, kickoff returner Sam Martin and running back Joquez Smith spoke to the media.
They're looking ahead to Saturday with the Tulsa loss now behind them. Inside the nest, Sam Covone is live at Edberg Olson Hall and was at the press conference earlier. Hey, Sam.
Hey guys, Smith and Martin Jr. talked about all the things that have gone wrong and that have gone right this season, as well as working together as a team. And this is what they had to say.
We just gotta stay together, keep working, and play as a team. We gotta play as a team. Offense can't be going, defense can't be going. We all gotta be going on all sides of the ball. Not at all. It's everything. The line, it's us, it's everybody. We gotta fix it. We gotta get it done. Each and every day he got something different for us, like pass protections, when to make our cuts, how to stay tight to the hole, what we're reading. Each and every day he helping us and telling us different things to get better and better our game.
we just it just got executed to like a T. You got Colin Green kicking out, and then Sadie Edwards and Hub just leading the way, and I just was just like ran behind them, and then the whole kickoff return unit did a great job of getting at blocks and getting good leverage on that blocks, and then I just ran after that.
I'm writing my script. Joquez Smith is absolutely right about this Temple team. Everyone needs to work together, and the only way that Temple will start to win and succeed is by getting better, and you get better by working together as a team. Like I said before, a team cannot win if they are not on the same page. And as of these past couple games, this Temple team has not been on the same page. Now, when it comes to Sam Martin Jr., he emphasized that punt return happened because of what he saw on the field and the blocks that happened for him. Now, I agree, but we do need to see more of that. And I believe that we can if Temple works more on their special teams unit. That's all I have for right now. Meg and Jake, back to you on the desk.
Thanks, Sam. Completely agree with you. But the Owls had a long week to prepare after a Thursday game, but their next opponent had an even more time to prepare.
Temple faces off against the UTSA Roadrunners fresh off of a bye week. It's now time to roll the tape and take a look at UTSA's most recent matchup against Tennessee. UTSA led the game in passing yards with 231. However, Tennessee dominated in this game with 512 total yards, outgaining UTSA 359-98 in the first half alone. Tennessee scored on 4 of its first 5 possessions, and the Volts took the win 45-14.
This game against 21st ranked Tennessee looked a lot like Temple's game versus 20th ranked Miami. UTSA did have a bye last week to rest up. The Roadrunners starting quarterback was Eddie Lee Marburger, but Owen McCown, the son of former NFL QB Josh McCown, came in for relief in the second half. Fun fact, Josh McCown and Kurt Warner were teammates on the Arizona Cardinals. If McCown were to start against Temple, it will be the first time in FBS history 2 sons of NFL QBs started against each other. Coming off of that bye week, the Roadrunners now face the battle of the Birds against the Owls. I'll start our game discussion by talking about last year's UTSA squad. This is not the same team as last year. They went 11-3, 8-0 in conference play. That was in the Conference USA, but now they're only 1-3 this season. They lost a lot of key players last year. Their top 2 receivers, as well as their 2 leaders in interceptions and their 3rd leading tackler. Not to mention last year, they were ranked as high as 22nd in the nation.
Absolutely. Now, although it may not be the same team, UTSA still has been pretty strong this season. They have 575 rushing yards in just 4 games. To put that in perspective, the Owls have 100 less rushing yards, 474 over 5 games. So that really shows how the Owls have been lacking on that run game. Now, the one thing that's unsure is who will be in QB position, as you mentioned. Frank Harris has been out due to injury. Owen McCown and Eddie Lee Marburger both have been in that QB spot, and it's just been an inconsistent play for UTSA. So whoever is in that QB position really is going to have an impact on that game.
Yeah, 2 straight weeks that the Owls don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback. We saw that with Tulsa, but that definitely worked out in the Golden Hurricanes' favor. But sticking on that quarterback point, it's definitely very important to talk about because Frank Harris was the starting quarterback all of last season, and like I mentioned earlier, they were really good last season. So if he does get the start against Temple, that completely changes their entire offense dynamic. And then also the defense for the Roadrunners, it's very inconsistent. Reminds me of a team that we see in Temple on the defensive side as well. You know, sometimes they have really good defensive performances, only giving up 17 points to a good Houston Cougars offense, and then other times they're giving up as much as 40-plus points. We'll have to see which defense we see in this game against Temple.
It certainly is going to be an interesting matchup, but it's now time for us to share our blueprint for success for Temple.
2-1. Start drives off with good returns. We saw what Sam Martin Jr. is capable of against Tulsa with the 95-yard touchdown return. While no one is expecting to see that every time, a good return that leads to good field position really helps. UTSA also happens to be dead last in the conference in kickoff return yards allowed, so that bodes well for Temple. Now, tool 2. Use extra blockers. While E.J. Warner hasn't been sacked an excessive amount, the pressure from the opposing pass rush is affecting his throws, not to mention how miserable the run game has been. Whether it be extra linemen or using more tight ends on the line as blockers, there needs to be more protection for Warner.
Tool number 3. Don't overcomplicate the game plan. Temple's offense and defense need to be on the same page with everyone completing their assignments. EJ has to take what the defense gives him and not force the issue to make a big play. Going back to the basics of football is what Temple needs to lock in on. And for our final tool for today, the Owls need to take advantage of UTSA's defensive vulnerabilities. UTSA's defense is giving up an average of 172.3 rushing yards and 210.3 passing yards per game. This is the perfect opportunity for Temple's offensive line to work on that run game, which in turn will only improve the pass game. It's always good to get some info on the away team from someone who covers the team full-time. We had the opportunity to talk to Vinny Vanzetta, a sports anchor for KENS 5 Sports in San Antonio, to get the inside scoop on all things UTSA football.
Vinny has been reporting on UTSA's football team since the Roadrunners program first started in 2009. Let's take a listen on what he had to say.
This is the first time in the history of both schools that Temple and UTSA face off against each other. Could you just introduce us to who the Roadrunners are and what to expect from them?
Head coach Jeff Schraler is a legendary Texas high school football coach out of a northeast Texas community called Gilmer, and he won 3 state championships there and then spent some collegiate assistant time at the University of Texas under Charlie Strong, and then some time, too, at SMU in Arkansas before landing the UTSA gig. He's the 3rd coach in program history, taking the program into a brand new stratosphere, new heights. They've still never won a bowl game in their young program history. That hasn't quite worked out yet, but they come off back-to-back Conference USA championships. And now, as you know, this is their first year now competing in the American Athletic Conference. Their starting quarterback, Frank Harris, has been injured this season and has missed the last couple of games. So they're hoping to have him back when they play the Owls next weekend. Time will tell there. If not him, likely backup Eddie Lee Marburger, who was a highly touted recruit from Sherryland Pioneer, I believe, in deep South Texas, as they might say. Quarterback issues with Frank's injuries, but a really good, strong, hard-running running back named Covone Barnes, and some really stellar wide receivers. They hope to get their number 1 receiver back, a guy named J.T. Clark. DeCorian Clark is his full name. He's been out all season, but hopes to make his season debut against the Owls. And then a couple of other long-standing receivers that have been with the program, Joshua Cephas and Tyke Ogle-Kellogg. All of those guys are very tall, big frames, so they can give defensive backs fits. And defensively for UTSA, up and down, played really well in the season opener in Houston, lost to the Cougars, I think 17-14. Played pretty good defense at the Alamo Dome against Texas State in slowing down the high-scoring Bobcats offense, but then really struggled against Army, who came in here and just kind of did really whatever they wanted to do and ran the ball at will against UTSA. So they're trying to figure out who they are defensively and what that identity is.
So in our show, we like to share our score predictions for the upcoming game. So we wanted to know what your score prediction was for Temple versus UTSA.
I'm going to go ahead and say that the old hometown Roadrunners get something positive going. And I'm going to say they get out of Philadelphia with a, let's go 31-13 UTSA.
Now that's Vinny's take, and he's not giving Temple much respect after the Tulsa loss. And speaking of that loss, it took until week 5, but the day is here. The ITN crew now has different score prediction records. Jake and Hayden still have a perfect record since they had Tulsa winning, while myself and Sam, like the Owls' performance, fell short and are left with a 4-1 record.
Let's hear if the crew's score predictions will line up with Vinny's or not.
We're going to hear first from Hayden Bandel, who is live at the studio set. Hey Hayden, what's it going to be?
Hey Meg, I'm feeling really good now that I have separation in our standings, but I've still got higher goals set for the season, and it continues on Saturday with UTSA winning its very first AAC game 36-22. The Roadrunners bring another dual threat QB that Temple showed last week it cannot stop. Frank Harris is expected to come back from injury and is approaching 2,000 career rushing yards and 10,000 career passing yards. There is nothing pointing in that direction for me to think that Temple will step up, especially with the team being banged up, as Stan Drayton mentioned. Sam, Temple was not able to bounce back after a Week 4 loss. Let's see if you can bounce back from your loss in Week 5. Who you got?
Thanks, Hayden. This week I have to agree with you. I have UTSA defeating Temple 24-14. As you mentioned, Temple is without a ton of their key players. Without the likes of Rigby, Ahmad Anderson, and Wright, Temple will have a lack of big plays on both sides of the ball. Now, UTSA is predicted to win by over 70%. Meg, we are now in the same boat with our season predictions. Are you going to agree with me and Hayden and say that UTSA is going to take the win? Or do you think that Temple will walk out of homecoming with their first AAC win of the season?
Sam, I am most definitely agreeing with you and Hayden. I have UTSA taking the win 31-17 over Temple. Temple has some key players that might not be able to play, as you mentioned. This will mean there will be younger guys who aren't as experienced on the field. Jake, what are you thinking?
We're all on the same wavelength here. I have UTSA in a 31-24 win over Temple. Signs are pointing to a return for Frank Harris, the starting quarterback, and I think that makes UTSA a much better team, even though it's going to be homecoming for the Owls. It might just be a little bit closer than expected. We're coming up on another break. When we come back, it'll be time to go no huddle.
Then later in the show, we'll hear from Hayden Bandel again on the current outlook of the AAC. Take a quick 90-second stretch, then we'll be right back. Welcome back. It's that time of the show again. We're going no huddle.
We'll have 2 minutes to answer 3 questions about the Owls. Let's roll the clock.
All right, question 1. Is the Owls' loss against Tulsa last Thursday the worst loss of the Stan Drayton era?
Listen, don't get me wrong. It was a bad loss. This should have been much closer than it was. But last year, Temple lost to UCF 70-13. 70 points UCF scored against the Owls. I don't think it gets much worse than that.
You know, that is a bad loss, but I'm going to say it's the worst loss in terms, it shows the lack of improvement from Temple. They are now 5 games in, and we really have not seen any steady improvement. So in that respect, I think it was a pretty tough loss.
All right, question 2 now. Do you think UTSA coming off of a bye is going to have an impact on this game?
It absolutely is going to have an impact. Vinny mentioned earlier in our Behind the Enemy Line segment that UTSA is looking to clean up their mistakes, and they had an extra week to practice and focus and lock in. I think UTSA will be eager to win their first conference game.
Yes, for sure. I completely agree. But it's not all going to be positive impacts for them. There will be positive impacts, but there's also going to be some negatives. UTSA has some rust to shake off. They've only scored 10 first quarter points all season, and coming off of a bye week now, they're going to have to get that offense going early on in this one.
Absolutely. All right, final question for today. It's homecoming weekend for Temple. How do you think that atmosphere might impact the game?
Well, this is also going to be an impact, but it's going to be a positive one for Temple this time. The last 2 homecoming games, the Owls have overperformed. Last year against Rutgers, they came in as 18-point underdogs. They only lost that game by 2. And then 2 years ago, they played the Memphis Tigers. They were 11-point underdogs for that one. They ended up beating Memphis.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. I think the homecoming atmosphere is by far the best game of the season. It typically has the most turnout, and the Owls are 7-3 in their last 10 conference home openers. So I think this might be the morale boost they've been needing.
Definitely. But now it's time for our last break of the day. When we come back, our very own Hayden Bandel will go over a busy week in the American Conference.
Don't touch that remote. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. Last week was Temple's first conference game, and after week 5, conference play has officially started.
It was a busy week in the American, and ITN's Hayden Bandel is live at the studio set to talk all about it. Hey, Hayden.
Hey, Meg. The real season is underway. The reigning conference champs are back where they left off, winning their first conference matchup of the season. The Green Wave scored a touchdown in every single quarter, topping UAB 35-23. They will next play the Memphis Tigers, who wrapped up their non-conference slate with their largest comeback victory since 2020, coming back from 17 points and beating Boise State 35-32. Rice got its first ever victory in AAC play, getting past ECU 24-17. North Texas finished non-conference play at 2-2 as it won 45-31 against Abilene Christian. SMU started American play with a 34-16 rout of Charlotte. And the final game is Navy versus South Florida. The Bulls pulled away with yet another victory as they improved to 2-0.
Well, welcome to the desk, Hayden. Tell us more about your standout game.
Yeah, so my standout game is that Navy versus South Florida game. The Bulls are now 2-0 in conference play for the first time since 2018. That was the last time they played in a bowl game. And on top of that, they're 2-0. The last time that they started 2-0 in conference play was when they made national rankings as well. But they also didn't look their best. They had 3 muff punts they had 1 muff punt along with 3 fumbles. And they're still scoring 40 points a game. Back-to-back games scoring 40 points for the first time since 2017. Last time they did that, they were ranked as high as 16th. And last time I was on this desk, I thought that USF would be the easiest team for Temple. I might have to scratch that. Even with them losing a whole bunch of transfers, they have the 2 leading receivers from last year leaving, Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn. They're now at Colorado, who is gaining all those headlines, along with losing their leading rusher, Brian Batty. So Alex Golich is making a good case for Coach of the Year in the American.
Absolutely. Now, on that note, which teams from the AAC are you expecting to make a bowl game?
So I really like Tulane, obviously. No conference championship has come out the next year and not made a bowl game. On top of UTSA. I know they're 1-3. We've talked all about it today. Frank Harris coming back. I think that's going to be critical for the Roadrunners in winning 6 games to get back from that 1-3 record. I also like SMU. They've won at least 7 games for the past 4 years.
Well, thanks for the insight, Hayden. Great stuff as always. But now the Temple sports coverage doesn't stop. On Thursday, upcoming, the flagship program, Owl Sports Update, is live with Danny Podolsky and Michael Merville. On Monday, you can find the sports brief on our X/Twitter, whatever floats your boat. And of course, we will be back next Tuesday at noon to talk about the UTSA game.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week's edition of Inside the Nest. Make sure to keep up with us on socials at Owl Sports Update.
For our show producers, Chloe Gessing and Jacob Smedley, and our entire Inside the Nest crew, thanks for watching, and we will see you the same time next week.